My friends, welcome back to the MD Medic Podcast. Today's episode is going to be on the heavier side. Today we're going to talk about the things that you need to be prepared for, the hard times ahead in the coming year. Let's go. All right, my friends, so today I'm going to talk about a lot of controversial topics that might actually get me flagged, that might actually get me in trouble with the YouTube platform, but here I am. I'm going to deliver you guys the truth at any cost. I'm actually thinking about starting a Rumble account where I can speak a little bit more freely, guys, so stay tuned for that. If anything happens to me on this channel, you know where to find me. So for right now, go ahead and give me a like and a follow on the MD Medic Podcast YouTube channel page. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk about some things today that might get me a little misinformation flag, or one of those little banners at the top of the screen where the Matrix says, hey, click this to learn more about the Great Reset, or click this to learn more about COVID. Generally speaking, whenever YouTube or any other major social media website feels like they have to tell you extra information about something that's being talked about, it's because of the person that made the content. They're right over the target and they're revealing some truths that the elites don't want you to know. And so they want to tell you their definition of the truth, their narrative, the one that's going to keep you enslaved and keep you underneath their thumb, but I'm not going to do that. So, gentlemen, the world is in trouble. 2024 is going to be a year of great turbulence. And don't be shocked if this time next year, the world is not the same world that you've always known. Now, I don't mean to be an alarmist, but the fate of the world is literally hanging in the balance. And my job here on this podcast is to help to make you the best, the most powerful, the most capable, the most rich, the most talented, the most solid men that you can be. And part of being a man is being able to protect those you love from coming hardship. And so I'm making this episode to give you an idea of the things to be prepared for ahead. And those hard times ahead, I believe, will be as early as this year. You see, there is a group of powerful elites, world leaders, and billionaire CEOs of the largest businesses that literally make the world go round, that have formed an evil oligarchy that meets in Davos, Switzerland, actually about this time of year, to collectively work together to usher in a new world order. If you don't believe me when I tell you this, watch them tell you themselves.
We are at an inflection point, I believe, in the world economy. Not just the world economy, in the world. It occurs every 3 or 4 generations. As one of the top military people said to me in a secure meeting the other day, 60 million people died between 1900 and 1946. And since then, we established a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos. And now is a time when things are shifting. There's going to be a new world order out there. There's going to be a new world order out there.
That order seems to not be the order anymore. We are on the way to a new order, so we are between orders. Do you agree with that, or are there ways of what are we able to keep on the positive side from the old order to bring into a new world order.
I guess, and maybe this is the old kind of teacher in me coming out. I think of this a little bit more about a transition of eras rather than a transition of orders, but the two are kind of cousins of one another.
Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the states of the world. But two conditions are necessary. The first one is that we act all as stakeholders of larger communities, that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility. And second, that we collaborate. And this is the reason why you find many opportunities here during the meeting to engage into very action and impact-oriented initiatives.
About the Great Reset. Well, that's the agenda of the global elites who want to remake capitalism in their image. And it takes its name from the 50th annual conference of the World Economic Forum. Now, the advocates for the Great Reset use phrases like build back better. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear political leaders all over the world parrot that mantra. It's hardly a coincidence.
To ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it build back better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
It's my plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, Britain After Coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy.
Well, I think maybe in a couple of decades when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracy.
So as you saw, these elites, these politicians, these world leaders, these leaders of business and industry, they're wanting to create a new world order. A new world order in which a centralized one world government and economy controlled by this oligarchy of governmental and business partnerships will own everything. And you and everyone else will own nothing. Everything you need or want, from the food you eat to the clothes you wear to the house you live in, will be rented from the government using a digital currency that the system of power can deactivate the very moment you are non-compliant with the agenda of the elite. You will be constantly under surveillance and constantly under their control. There will be no rich. There will be no middle class. There will be no poor. No white collar. No blue collar. No, those will be things of the past. There will only be the class of the ultra elite ruling class and everyone else. This new world order will be a reset of society, a reset of the social order as we have always known it, a great reset. This may sound like conspiracy theory, but in reality it is pure fact, as the people responsible for this are telling you exactly what they are doing. Just look at the UN Agenda 2030. Go on the United Nations website and look up Agenda 2030. You tell me if what I'm saying is conspiratorial. Or look at the fact that this World Economic Forum that I've showed you videos and pictures from, that they are part of this United Nations and part of this Agenda 2030. And the Great Reset is just their idea of expediting this agenda and putting it into play today. You see, I believe that 2024 will be the year of the New World Order global power push. And whether you end this year as a free man or a slave, alive or extinguished, it may be completely dependent on how much you pay attention to the things going on around you in the world and prepare. And in this video, I'm going to discuss some of the many things to which it is imperative that you pay attention as we come into this new year. Now, let's take a deep dive into some of the pivotal events we need to pay attention to this year. Now, arguably, 2024 is the biggest and most pivotal election year in human history.
I don't know if you guys have followed this story or not. This year is the biggest election year in the history of the world. Election year. 40 elections happen at the same time. The largest Christian nation, the two largest Muslim nations, all at the same time. 40 plus countries, 3.2 billion people will be voting this year. Will be allowed to vote this year. $44 trillion of GDP all this year, right? So we're talking Pakistan, election this year. India, election this year. U.S., election this year. Belgium, I can go on. There's 40 countries, elections this year, right? Yeah. When there is so many, things going on, the people who have had control behind closed doors that we don't know, what do they fear? They fear losing control, okay? And the number one piece amongst all these 40 elections going on around the world, 3.2 billion people potentially voting, the number one domino, not the second domino, the number one domino is a guy named Donald Trump, okay? So if he gets elected, the people who control can't control him.
Correct.
Because a lot of these other guys can be controlled. So for a voter that's sitting there, I looked at Vox, came out and said 55% chance Trump's going to be the president. Vox is not a conservative side. They're liberal. They're predicting, saying 55% chance Trump's going to end up being president this year. So walk us through. I called 2023 the year of investigations. I called this a year and a half ago. It was all investigations 2023. I'm calling this the year of chaos. I think it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be crazy. Yeah.
This year we have 40 of the world's largest and wealthiest and most influential nations having elections. This is the biggest opportunity for the global power push of the elites, when you literally have the most influential nations on the planet determining how they're going to be governed. What better time to take control of the planet in one fell swoop than to do it in a time where all of the major players in the world are already changing power. And of these major nations, America is definitely going to be the center of attention. Because in order to put the world under a new system, a new way of living, a new way of governance, a new world order, if you will, America, as the biggest player in the world, must be crushed. The American spirit of freedom and liberty, and we do what we want because we're Americans. We don't follow the globalist system. We follow our own system. Not the world first, but America first. The idea of America first must be crushed to implement this new plan. To implement this new one world global order, America as an individualistic nation has to be done away with. And because of that, the elites, the globalists, the people that sit in Davos, Switzerland, telling us how our future is going to go, they will do anything to make Trump not win. You see, these people have unlimited money. These people are, quite frankly, above money. They don't care about money. They print money. And if you really look deep in American politics and in American culture and a lot of the things that influence American society that are for the negative, things that make us weaker, things that make us poor, things that hurt our society, they're all funded by these globalists. For example, look at George Soros. He is one of the biggest influencers of American government. he is one of the people that funds the election campaigns of a lot of these liberal politicians in these big cities that just do the most destructive laws and policies in these cities that make America to a third world country in some place with drugs and crime running rampant. But George Soros, who isn't even an American, he's actually a member of this World Economic Forum, he funds these campaigns to make these things happen. They're trying to implode America from the inside. And because of that, because of the influence that they have, and because we know that their plan is to take us over, we know for sure they don't want Trump to win. Because as I said before, you can't have one world government when you have an America first ideology. If America doesn't get on board, the world can't get on board, because we have the strongest military, the wealthiest nation, all of the things. The world cannot come together and do anything without America on board. And so they will do anything to see Trump lose, because he is the enemy of globalism. For example, throughout the past year, Trump has faced nothing but false allegations, just absolute ridiculous charges and claims. They've tried to throw anything they possibly could at Trump to get him in jail, to get him in prison, to get him canceled. Even though it's completely ridiculous and has no merit to it, they've tried everything because they are afraid of this man. If you look at the mainstream media, Trump has not been president for 4 years now. And yet he has been all they could talk about for the last 4 years. If you ever turned on CNN or NBC at any time in the past 4 years, I guarantee you all they could talk about is Trump. Trump did this, Trump did that. And it is because these organizations are funded by the globalists, and they want you and your mind to be deceived, and they want you to be firmly implanted into the slave mind and not vote and support for your own freedom. You know, I even heard a theory that Trump was not supposed to win the 2016 election in the eyes of the globalists, right? That Hillary was supposed to win. And it's a compelling argument, because if you look, there were hundreds of thousands of copies of Newsweek magazine that was supposed to be released the day after the election that showed Hillary Clinton as the winner, as if they planned that to happen on purpose. And then you saw how outraged Hillary was when she lost, like as if she just could not believe it. And according to this theory, this conspiracy, Hillary was supposed to win. And, they were supposed to have meddled in that election and rigged it and influenced the results of the election. And that was the intention, that the election was actually rigged in favor of Hillary, but they underestimated the margin by which Trump would win. They underestimated the support that the Make America Great Again movement would have. They underestimated the number of red hat wearing, true American patriots who wanted secure borders, energy independence, strong economy, strong military, that would come out and vote for Donald Trump. And because of that, they were completely blindsided when it did not go their way, when Hillary did not become the president. And also, according to this conspiracy that I heard, I haven't verified it, but there's a lot of things that make sense and line up. According to this conspiracy that I heard, there is a certain virus, if you will, that was supposed to have started in 2016. A certain plandemic, if you will, that was supposed to have begun in 2016 with Hillary as president, that would have caused so much chaos and global disorder that the world would be looking for a savior, and the savior of the world, the people that would bring order out of chaos, would be this new world order system that would come and take over. But a big G with a swinging dick named Donald J. Trump kind of got in the way of this, messed it all up, messed up their plans. And so, it had to be postponed when this came about to, 2020. Also another election year. Keep that in mind. Now, 2016, according to this conspiracy theory that I heard, 2016 was supposed to be the year of the and then 4 years later, in 2020, was supposed to be the year of global famine and global hunger. Yet another thing to bring the world to its knees and look for a savior. Now, because Mr. Donald J. Trump held that back, messed up their plans, pushed it back 4 years, that puts us 2020 for the year of the and 2024 for possibly the year of other things, the year of the global hunger, the year of their power grab, their crippling power grab. to the average everyday person who will look to this New World Order system as a savior when their lives are miserable, when they can't even feed their children. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the year that we're living in. And though I don't know if this conspiracy is true, it does fit the picture and it does make sense. And I would imagine that if there was any validity to it, then this year being an election year would have a critical level of gravity, critical importance to their plan. And some might say that the 2020 election itself had some very questionable influences and questionable integrity going on with the method with which the election was conducted. You know, some might believe that. Some might even say that there was some fraud going on, but I'm not going to say that. Just some people might say that. And we kind of see how seriously the globalists are taking the 2024 election and how they are already trying to interfere in it. For example, we look at the current primaries that are going on at the beginning of 2024. As of the time of this recording, the Republican primaries are going on right now, with Ron DeSantis having dropped out, Vivek Ramaswamy having dropped out, and it's now down between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. But all of a sudden, you see Democrats and, George Soros and other very prominent globalists backing Nikki Haley. You even see CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, because all you do see is BS, but that's a different discussion. You even see all these mainstream legacy media corporations backing Nikki Haley, as if they ever back a Republican candidate, meaning that she's probably been sold out and bought by the globalists. And what they're trying to do is eliminate Trump from the primary, so it literally comes down between, some, globalist Democrat candidate and a rhino, a Republican in name only, but really a wolf in sheep's clothing. You even see them trying to do that. You see them trying to subvert the election there. Look at the New Hampshire primary. The Democrats in New Hampshire, they passed a new law where Democrats are allowed to vote in the Republican primary, and they're telling all the Democrats, hey, go vote for Nikki Haley. They're trying already to manipulate the results of the election. You even see the huge crisis down at the border that's been in effect essentially since Biden took office, and you're just like, why? Why do we have an invasion of our border? Why do we have an invasion of our country? And mind you, I don't mind immigrants. I actually would rather in many cases live amongst a lot of Hispanic Americans than a lot of the other Americans that are out there, because they bring with them a strong work ethic and a strong culture and a strong, ethos of Judeo-Christian values. I don't mind their culture. I love their culture, actually. I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic farm town. But to come here illegally with no regulation on the borders, where anyone can come in, terrorists, drug dealers, traffickers, anyone can come in, it's absolutely asinine. It's wild. And you're wondering, why would Biden do such a thing? Why would the Democrats focus so much on having open borders? Why does the World Economic Forum talk about open borders and free movement of people being such an important part of their plan? Why do they talk about this? Once again, it goes back to the election. If you can get millions and millions and millions of people that come here in absolute destitution and squalor, and then you have daddy government say, hey, listen, we'll help you, we'll give you free stuff, we'll give you food, we'll give you all this kind of stuff, we'll give you health care, we'll give you all this stuff at the Americans' tax expense, and all we ask for in return is your vote. You think that maybe could swing an election? You think that maybe could influence the course that a nation goes? I think it can. Why do you think they're always pulling the race card when it comes to politics? It's as if they know that a lot of African Americans are just so ignorant and uneducated that all they have to do is say, hey, race, this person's a racist, whether they have any merit to the claim or not, and all the black people are going to go and vote for the one who they think is the civil rights leader, even though the Democrats have always historically been the enemy of the black man. Why do you think they do this? Because they're trying to swing the results of an election, because they are afraid that the enemy of the globalists, the spirit of freedom that the Americans have always embraced, will continue being the government style of the American people. And they know that without the American people being fully on board to the globalist agenda, they cannot establish their new world order. Or even look at the fact that here recently, I I think it was CNN, said that they would not even air any of Trump's speeches, or they wouldn't even air any of the debates where Trump is on there, because they don't want the people of the United States to be misinformed by the misinformation, disinformation, and go to vote for a dictator. It's just asinine. They're deeply planted firmly up the asshole of the New World Order, and they're trying to enslave your mind. Resist the slave mind. I stole that quote from Andrew Tate because it is so applicable to the plight we have today. And everyone that is speaking the truth, everyone that is ringing the bell to say, wake up, people, wake up. See your oppressor, see what's coming. We're all essentially saying the same thing, to resist the slave mind. And on the topic of elections, it really wouldn't even surprise me if there was no election this November. If something happened to prevent the change of power. According to the United States Constitution, there can actually be a situation in which there is no change of power, even in an election year, when elections don't even happen. And that is a situation of martial law, in which the president needs to essentially declare a state of emergency, where essentially the military takes over and takes the role of the local governments and local law enforcement, and the entire country gets put into lockdown in order to promote social order and prevent social chaos. And this would happen in the case of a, civil unrest or natural disaster, or for some reason there's a bunch of disarray in society. It wouldn't be something that I would put past these evil globalists to incite a civil war, to incite societal unrest, just to prevent the change of power. Or if there was a change of power, I would guarantee that, they would totally be stirring up the Antifa people, the BLM people, the crazy purple-haired people that are offended by everything and believe anything the mainstream media tells them and says, hey, you guys need to go out in the streets, you guys need to riot, you guys need to not let Donald Trump take power because he's going to be a dictator, you need to have violence, you need to use violence, you need to burn things down, you need to go to the Capitol, you need to go to D.C., and you need to riot. And it's crazy that they won't call that an insurrection, but they'll call a bunch of, unarmed citizens going into the Capitol building, turning over a podium and taking pictures an insurrection. Different topic. But not surprised if they even tried to incite that. If they even tried to incite a full-scale civil war, it would not surprise me. Just look at the movie that came out this winter called Leave the World Behind. It was produced by the Obamas. By the way, they're both members of the World Economic Forum. Produced by the Obamas. And this movie essentially talks about this exact same thing. How a malicious actor, in order to subvert the governmental system of the United States, incites a civil war within its own borders to create this situation of societal unrest. Now, were they just making the plot for an entertaining movie, or is it predictive programming? Who knows? We will see. So now let's talk about the next thing that you guys should be paying attention to in 2024, and that is Disease X. Now, what is Disease X, you might say? Well, that's a really good question. So many of you might have seen on social media, on the news, on TikTok, on X, on all these different platforms, everyone at one time started talking about Disease X. You had the World Health Organization, a branch of the World Economic Forum. You had, CNN, you had Forbes, you had 60 Minutes even did a special about it. You had all of these international news stations all of a sudden start speaking about this mysterious Disease X as if they're all on the same agenda getting their information from the same place. I don't know. But what is Disease X? So according to them, Disease X is guaranteed to be the next pandemic. All of a sudden, they just start talking about it. They said it is going to be the next pandemic. It will 100% happen. It's going to be 20 times more dangerous than COVID. It's going to kill possibly 50 million people. They're already developing vaccines for it. We need to be afraid. We need to prepare. But yet, we don't know what Disease X is. We don't know what it is, guys. But we know enough to say, hey, it's going to kill so many people. This is how it's going to spread. We're developing vaccines for it. This is how deadly it is. But yet we don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. Sure. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds really ridiculous to me. If you don't believe me, take a look at what they're saying themselves from an international news source.
What I'm about to say next may sound alarmist, but it's time we discuss this. Healthcare professionals across the world are gearing up for a new potential pandemic, a pandemic which they say will be known as Disease X. No, this disease has nothing to do with Twitter's new name, neither is it a social media plague. Disease X is a legitimate health scare, the next unknown disease of epidemic potential. This term was formalized by the WHO in 2018. It was named X because of the lack of knowledge about it. It's not known what this disease will be, whether it will jump from animals to humans, or whether it will be a mysterious lab creation. But one thing scientists are certain about is this: Disease X is coming. They don't know when, they don't know how. What they do know is that it could be far worse than the Wuhan virus, that it could cause more deaths than the Wuhan virus, and that it could take us years to recover from it. This is how the WHO defined the disease. It said, Disease X represents the knowledge that a serious international epidemic could be caused by a pathogen currently unknown to cause human disease. The R&D blueprint explicitly seeks to enable early cross-cutting R&D preparedness that is also relevant for an unknown Disease X. In May this year, the chief of the World Health Organization, the one and only Dr. Tedros, issued a warning. He said, the planet should be ready for a disease deadlier than COVID. That a doomsday COVID variant with the power to send the world back to square one is still a big possibility. Allow me now to quote his exact statement. The threat of another variant emerging that causes new surges of disease and death remains, and the threat of another pathogen emerging with even deadlier potential remains. 4 months since this warning was issued, scientists the world over are talking about this. This includes Kate Bingham, who served as the chair of the UK's vaccine task force. She says, we need to prepare for Disease X because it could be more perilous than COVID-19. Let me now take you through her claims one by one. The scientist says that this disease, Disease X, could have a similar impact as the devastating Spanish flu of 1918. 2. Disease X could potentially result in up to 50 million more deaths. 3. The disease could emerge from the millions of viruses that are yet to be discovered. 4. It may take scientists a whole lot of time to develop vaccines that can fight this disease. Now, the UK is not taking this warning lightly. As I speak, it's setting up a vaccine development and evaluation center.
Now, isn't that wild? Once again, they say they don't know what it is, but yet they know exactly how many people it's going to kill. They know how it's going to spread. They know how dangerous it is. They're already developing vaccines for it, but they don't know what it is. It's almost as if they do know what it is. It's almost as if they maybe made it in a lab. Just a possibility, you know. I heard that, you know, there might have been a pandemic that happened recently that might have been made in a lab and released purposefully. I don't know. I heard it was a possibility. This is ridiculous, guys. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to shake the world. And here's why I think that they did. Because, well, let's look at the timeline. As we said, there may have been, there's allegations that possibly the 2020 election was not, you know, a very fair, integral election. There's possibilities. It's a rumor. It's a rumor, okay? Now, let's look at what the rumors and accusations were on how it may or may not have been unfair, right? Let's look at those rumors. Some people say it might have had something to do with mail-in votes. That might have had something to do with some other virus, disease, sickness, I don't know. Something like that, yeah. And when did the world start hearing about this supposed, back when that last possible questionable election happened? It was about this time. Yeah, about this time in 2020, right? About the beginning of 2020, we started to hear about this strange Chinese, but we didn't really need to worry because it wasn't really going to spread. And then around March, we kind of had lockdowns. In the spring, you know, just kind of in time to build up enough panic and, you know, so that come October and November, we could have mail-in votes kind of in order and have the mail-in vote system ready to go so that, you know, as soon as the election wasn't really going the way that it was planned to go, you know, they could just stop counting and maybe, I don't know, find some mail-in votes that happen to have the the candidate that the globalists wanted on there. Yeah, just a thought. I don't know. I'm not saying this happened. Just fair discussion. So if that happened in 2020, would it be really, really crazy to think that in another election year that we're all of a sudden hearing about a new kind of that at the beginning of the year in January or so, and that maybe come around the springtime we're going to start to hear, oh, it's here, lockdown, scare, fear, panic. Maybe in the fall, possibly, you're going to start to have the talk of mail-in votes and things like that. I mean, just the idea. You know why they're going now, possibly might be going for something that's stronger and more deadly than the original. It's because if they said, hey guys, with the current virus we're dealing with, there's a new wave. There's a new wave of the everybody get your Fauci ouchie. There's a new wave. Guys, because of this new wave, we got to shut down everything again, and we got to bring back mail-in votes again. Everybody would be like, nah, that is bullshit. I don't believe it. That's what people would say. We'd be like, no, something's up here. How convenient. 4 years apart during an election year, you're willing to do this. But if they do something that's actually scary, that's actually killing, 1 in 5 people, like they're saying that it could, that's actually causing people to die left and right, that you're actually seeing the bodies in the street, something that's actually killing women, children, strong men, old people, everybody. If they have something that's actually dangerous, that actually has people afraid, that actually has people willingly wanting to lock themselves down out of fear, that might work. Because once again, to them, everything is on the line. To the people who want to have control over the world, everything is on the line here. And to them, you and I, people who aren't these billionaires, these elites, these people who rule the world, we're just ants. Like, our lives are completely inconsequential to them. Our hopes, our dreams, our families, they're inconsequential to them. So guys, be on the lookout for that. Look for things that might clue you in to this plan happening. So now let's swing back and talk about that food crisis that we were discussing before, the global famine and the 4-year cycles that possibly Trump delayed until now. The reason why I say that this conspiracy theory might have some level of credibility to it is we just look at the things that are going on in the world now. We look at the things that have happened according to this timeline, and it seems like it might have some validity. And why would they want to cause a food crisis? Why would they want to cause a global famine? What would be the use of killing millions of people? Well, it's because anytime the world is upset and people are desperate and people are scared and people are destitute and they are looking for an answer, they will take anyone. They will accept the rule of anyone who appears to be a savior. Just look at Nazi Germany. You see that after World War I was lost by Germany, the Weimar Republic at that time, everything in Germany was absolutely just in shambles. The Treaty of Versailles that the Allied powers forced Germany to sign absolutely just destroyed their economy. People were dying of starvation in the streets. It wrecked the economy. There was record poverty, runaway inflation. It was a miserable time. People couldn't feed their children. People couldn't keep a roof over their head. And they were looking for anybody who seemed to have an answer. They were looking for anybody who seemed to be a savior. They were looking for anybody who seemed to be able to bring order in the state of chaos. And there was a man by the name of Adolf Hitler and his brown shirts at the time, and the Nazi Party. And they seemed to offer this answer, no matter how atrocious their ideology was, their doctrine was, no matter how racist and anti-Semitic what they preached and what they spoke was, the people were so desperate for a savior that they were willing to tolerate and accept extremes. This is why a food crisis, a famine, hard times, a pandemic, a disease might be useful to the one world government, might be useful to this new world order that wants to establish itself. So how can we see this food crisis happening now? Let's look over in Germany once again. If we look in Germany today, there is a huge crisis with farming. There is a huge protest with some rioting, some marches of all of these German farmers. And you might ask, why are they so angry? What are they doing? Why are they turning over tractors in the city? Why are they spraying manure on, the steps of government buildings? Why are they so angry? And it's because of this. The globalists who have infiltrated the cabinets of these European countries, Central and Eastern European nations, they have passed a law that is just completely ridiculous. Like, there's no way of spinning it where you can think, hey, this makes sense why they would do it. So, in Germany right now, the cost for diesel is like, $6 or $7 per gallon. That's the cost of diesel for, people in the commercial sphere, or let's say, private vehicle owners, anything like that. But the farmers always have gotten a premium, a discount on diesel fuel so that they can run their machinery and keep the economy going. And they were able to purchase diesel for a matter of cents. And this allowed them to have enough of a margin between the overhead and profit that they were actually able to profitably, grow crops and feed the nation. And it's even more important that they do this now, because now Germany is like the largest agricultural producer in the European mainland, in Western Europe. They're the largest exporter of cereal, grain products, of cattle and livestock. Used to be Ukraine, but there's now a little tiny conflict going on over there where nobody's really able to grow anything. But with that being said, the government took that away. They took away the diesel fuel discount from the farmers. And this is going to make it impossible for them to grow at the same amount of productivity that they used to. It's going to make it impossible for them to be able to feed Europe for the same cost that they did. Because now there's so much overhead that either they're just not going to grow, or they have to charge a ridiculously high price for food. I mean, like 20x prices. And so, you'd be like, why would they do this? Why would any government system do this? What would be the purpose? But it can cause that desperation. It can make it a situation where it is just primed for a bunch of trench coat wearing, high, tall leather boot wearing, goose stepping, evil New World Order people to come in and take over. That's why. So not only will Germany suffer, but the entirety of Europe will suffer. This doesn't stop if something doesn't get continued. And then that brings it to us. And people are like, oh, how does this affect the United States? Well, that affects us this way, because that means that we will have to export a lot more of our farming produce and products and agricultural products over to Europe to feed them, to make up for their slack, which means that there will be less of it on the market available for us. And by, nature of supply and demand, as the supply goes down and demand stays the same, then prices must go high. So we're going to see a food crisis like never before, with food prices going up, with there being food shortages and the prices of food being beyond the range of affordability for most people in Europe. And once again, why are they doing this? Is it to make this desperation for them to rise? Maybe. Some people say that it's a agenda of depopulation. Because, let's be honest, a lot of these globalists, they believe in depopulation. They believe that humans are the problem, that we cause global warming, that we are the reason why the sun is too hot, that there's too many of us here, there's too many little peon ants here. They only need a small amount of humans here. They only need a small amount of peasants willing to serve them. They believe in lowering the population of the world. And as crazy as that sounds, once again, I'm not making this up. Watch them say it with their own mouths.
Here we can see a chart that looks at the total world population over the last several hundred years. And at first glance, this is a bit scary. We go from less than 1 billion in 1800, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.4 billion where we are today. Well, over this decade, we believe unbelievable progress can be made, both inventing new vaccines and making sure they get out to all the children who need them. The benefits there in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth, it really allows a society a chance to take care of itself once you've made that intervention.
The benefits are in terms of reducing sickness, reducing the population growth.
The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. The United Nations can and should play an essential role in helping the world find a satisfactory way of stabilizing world population.
We've got to stabilize the population. When I was born, there were
what's wrong with the population? I mean,
with too many people. That's why we have global warming. We have global warming because too many people are using too much stuff. But if there were less people, they'd be using less stuff.
Mr. Turner, I was wondering if you think it's a good idea to reduce 90% of the population because we are being overpopulated by a lot of... 90%. 80? Prince Philip said 80, sir. I go with 85.
I think 2 billion is about right.
The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
So the fear of an upcoming food crisis, whether it's for the purpose of fostering the instability that will lead to, the rise of the New World Order, or whether it is to outright depopulate the earth, it's a very reasonable possibility. And another thing that gives that conspiratorial 2016, 2020, 2024 timeline a little bit more credibility. And the last thing that I want to talk about that we need to be aware of in 2024 is the possibility of World War III and nuclear annihilation. Man, don't you just love the mood of this podcast? We got to talk about this stuff, though. The world is literally on fire right now. I mean, let's just do a broad sweep through. The world is literally on fire right now with conflicts and between nations with entangling alliances that can get us all drug into a melee. For example, you have the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but now, Sweden is applying for a NATO citizenship, and all the other NATO member countries that are around Russia and Ukraine, they're all aiding Ukraine, and they're right on the tension of war. I mean, they're right there on the edge for one shot to be fired into a NATO country, and then it all blows up because the whole reason for NATO to exist is for the United States and a bunch of other countries to essentially promise to fight with each other to the death in the case that Russia attacks. If one fights, we all fight. And then we have a recent, NATO admiral said that, we all need to prepare for war. We all need to prepare for a possibility of nuclear war. We all need to store food and be prepared to fight because of the possibility of nuclear war arising from this. Then you look in the Middle East and you have Israel, and all the countries around them hate them. All of the Arab countries around Israel want them to not exist. You have the Palestinian conflict, but I guarantee you if this turns into an even higher, escalation of warfare involving other nations, that all of these Middle Eastern nations around Israel are going to jump right into the fray. And historically, Israel has been a nation that the United States has had alliances with, has had one of those if you fight, we fight alliances. And as a proxy to this Israel conflict, we have Iran that has been attacking United States military assets, and we've done airstrikes on them along with Britain. We've had Yemeni soldiers firing upon one of our battleships. Once again, another thing that can just escalate into a hot war with Iran, Israel, Russia, all being nuclear powers. It's absolutely wild. While at the same time, you have China threatening to invade Taiwan, China being a nuclear nation as well. Japan saying that, hey, if you guys invade Taiwan, we're going to fight on the side of Taiwan to the last man. And China saying, well, we'll nuke you, Japan. And Japan is one of our close allies also, in which we're like, hey, if you fight, we fight. So with that being said, the world is a hot mess. We're literally probably as close to nuclear war as we've been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's interesting. The people who are pulling these strings, the people who are part of this global elite group, the World Economic Forum, the people who are trying to put this great reset into order, they're all building bunkers in preparation. They're all building these elaborate multi-million-dollar doomsday bunkers. Look at Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook and Meta. also a member of the World Economic Forum. He's building a huge bunker in Hawaii, $100 million worth, I think. Then you have Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. They're building a bunker complex in New Zealand. They're all preparing for something. What do they know that we don't? Once again, I'm not super sure, but I think it's imperative that you guys pay attention. So I know a lot of you now wondering, what actionable steps can we take? With all this crazy doom and gloom information that you've given me, MD Medic, what actual steps can we take to be ready? What can we do? First of all, we gotta vote. Keep America great. If Trump loses this election, we are finished. We are finished. First of all, please do that. Second of all, prepare for hard times. We know the times are coming. We know things are going to get worse. So with that being said, every time you're at the grocery store, buy some extra food. Buy some extra ammunition. Make sure you have some water or a water supply on hand. Just little things like that. Be prepared for hard times, because that will put you ahead of the masses of slave-minded individuals who think everything is okay until it's not. And another thing that you need to do right now is make as much money as is possible. Money is a shield from a lot of the things that could go wrong. Money is you're probably your biggest weapon, your biggest asset right now. Money is insulation against the global chaos. Money gives you the ability to react and prepare according to what you see going on. I honestly don't think that there's a whole lot worse than like seeing everything that's happening, knowing it's getting bad, but being too broke to do anything about it. Like, I would actually probably rather be oblivious, rather be just distracted and entertained by TikTok and social media and keeping up with the Kardashians, and then the world just collapses and I am screwed and it just takes me by surprise and I'm now a slave. And I didn't know about it, it just happens. I would rather that than to sit and see it all coming and not being able to do anything about it because I'm too poor. So you got to make this money. And here's something that works for me to make money, works for me to be able to have the resources to prepare, is the understanding and the knowledge that attention and emotion always cause money to move. Whenever people are massively fearful or massively emotional about something, their money flows along with it. For example, with the election going on, every time Trump, goes ahead, every time Trump makes a victory, then a lot of the stocks that are tied to him, a lot of the companies that are tied to him, like Digital World Acquisition, which runs his platform of Truth Social, their value, it shoots up exponentially on the stock market. If you buy into that, you can make a profit. I've been making thousands of dollars a day from that. Every time people have fear, attention, and emotion, it is an ability to make money. Pay attention to when people are emotional and afraid, because their money usually goes and follows their fear, or their money usually goes and follows their excitement. Even if it's transient, there's dips that can be bought. There's opportunities to make money. There's always things out there. I heard a story about a guy in Britain. He was, originally from Jamaica, him and his wife. And in the last pandemic in 2020, they were paying attention to what was going on in the world, and the lockdowns hadn't got to London yet. But he was like, man, I see what's happening in other countries when they lock down. Restaurants are closing. People are just stuck in their house. So you know what? My wife's a really good cook. I bet when this happens, we can make some money. Now, when he started to see the lockdowns coming closer and closer to Britain, he went and decided, you know what? I'm going to invest in turning my house into a food prep station. He went and bought all kinds of industrial grade cooking supplies, ingredients, all these things like that. And during the pandemic, he essentially had his wife go and just make homemade Jamaican meals, and he went and delivered them to people. Sold them for $10 a plate, and was just delivering homemade Jamaican meals to people's houses, because during lockdowns there was not many restaurants or things that they could choose from, and they were making $30K a month from that. Now imagine if things got real, times got tough, and you need to be able to get out of town. You needed to be able to hoard a bunch of food, to be able to prep. You needed to have resources to prepare for hardship. He would have been in a much better spot than a lot of brokies would be able to. So, guys, pay attention to where there's opportunity. Money almost always follows fear and emotion. And guys, I don't want you to have to be fearful, because I believe that fear is not of God. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And we can even see from the scripture that being prepared is not about being fearful. It's just about being prudent. We see how in the book of Genesis, Joseph, son of Jacob, one of the 12 sons of Jacob, Joseph, when he is, in Egypt, he interprets Pharaoh's dreams of the 7 fat cows and the 7 skinny cows, and essentially is able to see the prophetic vision of 7 years of famine coming to the land of Egypt. And he's able to use that information to prepare and allow Egypt to be super prosperous and be well fed during this time of famine when everyone else around was starving. Or we see in Proverbs, when in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon says to observe the ways of the ant, how he labors in the summertime, gathers, harvests, so that in the wintertime, when it's cold and you can't harvest, he has plenty to eat. And I think that is what we need to do. I know that that's what we need to do. Times are hard. Times are really tough. And as a man, you need to be able to have the ability to protect and to provide for those that you care about. Because that's what we're about here on the MD Medic podcast, to make you the very best, the very strongest, the very richest, the very most capable man you can be. So please, with that information, I want you to go conquer. I want you to go be successful. I want you to go prepare. My friends, the world is yours. MD Medic Podcast. We're out.